Thanks very much, Tahir, and good morning, everyone. Delighted to be here. I've got about 5 to 10 minutes to talk to you about some things which are going on at the GMC that are relevant to this discussion, which calls to mind the old Monty Python sketch where Michael Palin has to recite the complete works of Proust in about 2 minutes. So anyway, I'll do what I can in that short period of time to highlight, I think, 2 or 3 key things which are relevant to the discussion. The GMC, I think, has been on what might be called something of a long and at times painful journey over the last 25 years or so. And I think the background was, if you go back to the 1980s, that in sort of contemporary parlance, that the GMC at that time, for whatever reason, didn't get it. It didn't get it in terms of its governance, and it didn't get it in terms of how patients were increasingly wanting a greater say and greater ownership of what went on in healthcare and the dialogue with their healthcare professionals. Since then, I think the GMC has recognised the need to move pretty rapidly to address some of these issues, and with strong support from colleagues at the Department of Health in England and in the other UK Departments of Health, and also from the profession and the wider community. The GMC has modernised extensively in a number of ways. Why are we there? We're there to promote proper standards in the practice of medicine, and yet our profile has been seen to be around doctors at the end of the spectrum where things have gone seriously wrong. And it's true that a large part of our budget is devoted to what we call fitness to practice, i.e. things which call into question whether doctors should continue to be registered. But I think we're gradually seeing a repositioning of the organisation around a more positive standards and education agenda. Those are our 4 functions, and it's the one there in the bottom left quadrant, fitness to practice, which I think commands all of the attention. But I think we're going to see, going forward over the next few years, much more public focus on the education and standards work. And I want to talk just a little bit about that. This is our core guidance, Good Medical Practice, most recently revised 2 or 3 years ago. And I think the central theme at the heart of this document is the need for a proper partnership between the doctor and the patient. And the old paradigm where the patient was, as it were, on the receiving end of care, and the doctor made the decisions and held all the knowledge. We know that's all been swept away. It's been swept away by technological change with the internet. It's been swept away also by social change. And I think if you read Good Medical Practice, it's very, very clear what the GMC now expects in terms of the relationship between doctors and patients. And that theme of change and social change is also reflected in the governance of the GMC. If you go back just a few years, the GMC was a predominantly medical body. There was an assumption that there was something called self-regulation, and self-regulation required there to be a majority of doctors on the governing body of the GMC and other healthcare regulators. About 3 years ago, the GMC proposed a move away from that to a balanced model of 50% lay, 50% medical. And that was quite challenging for many doctors who I think found it psychologically or emotionally quite difficult to move away from where we'd been in terms of a medical majority. But I think actually the council, which has been in place now for the best part of this year, has managed to establish itself, and the profession is pretty comfortable with where we are, and the fact that the governance of healthcare regulation encapsulate that need for partnership between patients and the public and the profession. But there needs to be much more than just 12 lay people on the GMC. One thing that we're doing is to establish what we've called a reference community to engage with patients and the public and with doctors. It's fairly small scale. It's about 25 patients of the public, 25 doctors. And the idea is to provide a bit of a sounding board so that when policy ideas are beginning to be discussed, we're able to bounce them off a group of doctors and patients of the public, just to get a sense of, is this going in the right direction? It's not fully formed yet. We've got this idea. Do you think this is going to have legs? Is this the sort of thing we need to be doing? And if you go to our website, you can find out a bit more about the reference community and the sorts of thing that it's going to be doing, and the sorts of people who are on it are all appointed against through an open competition. So it's an embryonic idea. We'll see how it goes, but it's basically trying to answer that question, is this policy moving in the right direction? Does the organisation get it? Then the final thing I wanted to mention was revalidation. Revalidation is a major change programme which will involve every doctor needing to demonstrate on a regular basis that they're up to date and fit to practice. And the historical model of registration with an organisation like the GMC was that it was assumed that if you qualified at a point in time, then 20, 30 years later, you must still be qualified unless you'd been reported to the GMC for something terrible. And what was clear, I think, was that some of the very serious cases of the 80s and 90s, which demonstrated really serious problems involving doctors and other healthcare professionals, which for various reasons had not been reported to the relevant authorities, or perhaps had been reported but hadn't been dealt with in the way that they perhaps should have been, required a different approach to registration. So it's no longer enough to say, trust me, I'm a doctor because I'm on the register. You have to change what being registered means. So it's not just I qualified at a point in time, but I have demonstrated through an ongoing process that I'm up to date and fit to practice. Part of that is going to involve the use of multi-source feedback, whereby patients and colleagues of the doctor provide feedback as to whether the doctor is performing in line with appropriate professional standards. This is a busy slide, so but nevertheless, I think the slides will be on the website, so you can sort of download this and take a closer look. But these are the sorts of questions which will be asked of colleagues in relation to each doctor, and these are the sorts of questions which will be asked of patients. So does the doctor make you feel at ease? Does he or she listen? Does he or she involve you in decisions about your treatment? So there'll be a systematic process underpinning continuing registration with the GMC going forward. Again, this is very challenging for parts of the profession, but I'm very pleased to say that the profession is showing real leadership in working very closely with partners in the medical royal colleges, in the departments of health and elsewhere, in beginning now to put in place a plan to implement this. And I think we'll see from around 2011 onwards systematic revalidation being put in place. And I think patients will then be able to look at the medical register and other professional registers and not just take it on trust that those who are on that register are up to date and fit to practice. They will have the confidence that there are processes underpinning this and that I'm sure will be positive for patients, but I think it will also be positive for doctors themselves. But it's important that we embrace this in a positive way. There are challenges, but we're confident that those challenges can be overcome. That's all I wanted to say to him.